This 6'5" perimeter shot creator has a 96 3-point rating for access to every shooting badge on Hall of Fame and a 94 steal rating for Hall of Fame Interceptor, making this one of the best two-way sharpshooting builds so far in NBA 2K25. This is the tallest height that can get this combination of shooting and defense badges, making it one of a kind. I'm going to go through this whole build and explain each attribute, each badge, and all of the animations that this build unlocks. Now, if you guys know me, I normally post on NBA 2K Lab, but I'm going to start posting some videos over here as well, so if you could consider dropping a sub, it'd be greatly appreciated. But let's get right into it. Now, I chose to make a 6'5" build to get access to the best shooting badges possible, because at 6'6" you're still capped at a 94 3-point rating, which means you can't get most Hall of Fame shooting badges besides Hall of Fame set shot specialist without using a max +1 or by just upgrading your mid-range. A max +1 badge perk is an unlockable reward that allows you to increase your badges one level past its maximum potential, and we'll talk more about where I plan on using mine later in the video. Matter of fact, comment down below which legend shooting badge you think will be the most powerful in NBA 2K25. I'm wondering if Limitless will be making a comeback. And then real quick guys, if you want to know all the badge and animation requirements for NBA 2K25, NBA2KLab.com already has all of that in one place right now, so you can get a head start on how to shape your builds. I use these free tools every time I make a build, and it's extremely useful and convenient to make sure you don't miss out on any crucial thresholds. But let's get back to the build, and starting with defense, you can see I went with a 6'7" wingspan, which maxes out our shooting at a 96 3-point rating, but this wingspan also allows me to get just enough steal rating for Hall of Fame Interceptor. And when I played at Community Day, bump steals and lane steals felt especially good, and it feels like Interceptor might be back in NBA 2K25. And with the court size feeling more spacious this year, you might need Interceptor more than ever. You still have access to Gold Glove, but in my short experience playing this game, plug steals were a little less frequent than they were in 2K24. We also went with a 74 perimeter defense, which was only brought up by the steal rating, but it's the perfect budget threshold because you get access to basic defensive bronze badges such as Challenger, Pick Dodger, and On-Ball Menace, which is essentially the new Clamps badge. This build will have to rely on being 6'5" since we have no interior or block, which is actually one thing I might try to get if I remade this build, but overall I think this build can be an effective defender, especially when it comes to generating turnovers. Moving on to the playmaking, I went with an 86 ball handle, and at the time we didn't know animation requirements, but I still feel like it's a great threshold for most of the good dribble sigs. This is an attribute that's subject to change in a future build, but it's still solid considering the fact you can add your cap breakers later on if you did want access to better animations. We still don't know what the best moves are, so this is a tough attribute to fully decide on. The one thing I'm not sold on though is the silver unpluckable, but that's also to be determined until we know how good plug steals are. But moving on to speed with ball, I went with a 75 for silver lightning launch, which should be more than enough to get open for easy looks on the perimeter. We'll get a better idea of what we need when it comes to speed with ball when we figure out the good dribble styles, but I decided to go with more steal instead of more speed with ball on this particular build. And then a 71 pass accuracy, which doesn't unlock many pass styles, but you do get silver dimer. But I personally do enjoy having more pass accuracy on my builds in general, so this might be something I look at in about a week or so. But with the other playmaking thresholds on this build, you'll still be a deadly secondary ball handler. Now onto what makes this build great is the shooting ability, and as a shooting guard I plan to shoot the ball, so I went with a 96 3-point rating, which gives us access to all of the Hall of Fame shooting badges. That means limitless range, deadeye, shifty shooter, and set shot specialist all at Hall of Fame. Not to mention, and this is my favorite part, is that I also have the option to increase any of those shooting badges to legend when I unlock the max +1 badge perk. Now a lot of sharpshooting builds will probably be made at shorter heights for things like Mini Marksman and just more attributes in general, but I still feel like height will play a big factor when it comes to contests and release points. And if everything stays the same, 6'5s will still be the shortest height to unlock the wing jumpers. I'll be making this build on day one, or at least a close iteration of this build, and I plan to mainly play rec and potentially some park as well. And I don't know if you guys have heard yet, but your rebirth build maxes out at your highest players overall, so there's a good chance I'll be grinding this build out heavily before making my other builds. So with that being said, definitely stay tuned for my final day one build. But moving on to finishing, I gave this build a 75 driving dunk, which will get you some basic and presumably effective packages, and you'll also get bronze posterizer with the new 65 vertical requirement just for good measure. But if you prefer to go with a decent layup over dunk rating, you should be able to save some attribute points to round out the rest of your build. But for me personally, I prefer to have at least decent dunk. I went with an 85 speed, which doesn't unlock anything, but it's always good to have, so that's something that could be potentially tweaked as well. And then I went with a 77 agility for gold slippery off ball, and at 76 agility you unlock Hall of Fame shifty shooter with that 96 3-point requirement. And then lastly we have a 65 vertical, which is the new posterizer requirement for bronze. Now, a couple things I was thinking about when making the build was how much more I could have gotten by maybe lowering my steel to 85 for gold interceptor, or maybe lowering my speed a bit since I didn't unlock anything with the higher speed. But with those things being lowered, I could probably finesse some contact dunks or do something else really cool with the build. So just keep in mind there's definitely a lot of ways to make unique builds, but for this build in particular, I just wanted to see what Hall of Fame defense and shooting badges look like on the tallest build possible, and it looks like this build can be really effective. Now, thank you all for watching. I got a ton of more builds coming out soon. I'll be doing a ton of build content on my channel as well as NBA 2K Lab as well, but I just want to say thank you all for watching the video, and I will see y'all in the next one. Later.